Okay, I'm returning to a Keeper of the Prophecies. I did the first mission, the Enterprise, over 2 years ago, but I've always wanted to come back to it, so let's get right to it.
Time. It is the enemy of the living and the dead. We live our lives. We tell our stories. Then we die. And time has the audacity to march on without us. "47 years ago, the Hammerites cleared this land and set a cornerstone within what was then known as the Deep Wood. And to the great dismay of the darker forces who once lived there, the cathedral would rise up to become the most magnificent building ever constructed. The hands of 5,000 masons laid stone upon stone, year upon year, and the hands of 75,000 pious Hammerites paid their tithes, week by week, until the great edifice took shape and became what we now see. It was to stand forever, they said, against every form of evil. Yet those who were alive at the beginning, the workmen, the priests, and the ordinary tithe-payers, most have since died. So much for that end to every form of evil. Like the Hammerites, my father was a great believer in his own destiny. As his life drew to a close, he secretly began to eliminate anyone who might stand in the way of his last will and testament. And as he quietly killed off all claims to his inheritance, I discovered and told him whatever he needed to know. It was not an easy way to survive. For my father, you must understand, was Solustus, the second Lord and Master of the Enterprise. And I was his faithful daughter, Alicia. Then there was Garrett, a keeper of the prophecies, they say, although he would never admit to this. Seeking riches from a lord named Constantine, he lost an eye for his trouble. And even though the score had since been settled, Garrett wandered the streets in a darkness of his own making, until one day my father took an interest in him. Solustus was now a very old man, and some even whispered that he might wish to make Garrett the third Lord of the Enterprise. And so it was entirely natural for me to observe this Garrett at close hand, in order to send my father the most reliable information about him. And that is what I did. One night, after watching Garrett drink himself into a stupor, I decided to act. He was becoming ever more depressed, yet he chose to do nothing about his missing eye, even though the Hammerites had promised him a new mechanical eye, which held remarkable, perhaps even magical, powers. But as I returned to the old village with Garrett's new eye, I was chased, then attacked, and the eye was taken from me. Later, Garrett himself found my body lying in a pool of blood. And as preposterous as it might seem, I've been dead ever since, floating through this world as a formless apparition. And now we see Garrett, struggling through his nightly rounds, a trek made more difficult now that he has been poisoned by someone who would rather see him dead than ever take possession of my father's estate. I do what I can to help him along, but the healing vials he will find tonight are only a temporary measure, to keep him alive long enough until I can find a more permanent solution.
He was corrupted without his knowing. For he failed to perceive his danger. But his folly was meant to be. And his journey would be no accident. From the Book of Amahus. Okay. Next up, Part 2, Hallucinations. See you then.